Flyers dreaming. They won it by 4 in the end.
American Anthem has taken off. American Anthem easily in the Woody Stevens.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Spa Babies, presented by Winstar. Dan Illman along with Nicole Russo. And let's take a look at the race for 2-year-olds at Saratoga. It's the Grade 1 hopeful on closing day Monday. At 7 furlongs, $350,000 is the purse. And as we see from this entry card, half the field sired by Winstar stallions. It's a pretty remarkable feat.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, this is such a well-matched field. When I went through handicapping this race, there was almost no one that I threw out in terms of having a shot at the victory. This is one of my favorite races of the year, to be honest. Doesn't the name just say it all when we're looking at these 2-year-olds and looking ahead for them? And this is a really exciting renewal of this race, I think.
The number 1 is Mojovation, one of 2 in here for trainer Todd Pletcher, a $330,000 yearling. He was all the rage for his career debut. The word was certainly out. He went out at 4 to 5, and I really like the professionalism and speed he showed in his debut. But this inside draw, Nicole, kind of forces John Velasquez's hand in a field with other speeds.
Yeah, I think professional is the right word to describe his debut. Earned a buyer of 86 for that win on the lead. Tied for best in this field, but not by a wide margin. And he really is going to have his hand forced, I think, from that rail position to work out a trip. He's coming off a series of solid works since that debut. And, you know, he's from a really interesting pedigree with a lot of speed and stamina in the mix, I think.
Certainly, Grade 2 stakes winner Crafty CT could go long, he could sprint. Very versatile pedigree, but this sort of showed some speed and ability in the career debut. The number 2 is Oskar Blues. Now, Oskar Blues was completely dismissed in the career debut at 33 to 1, but the son of Winstar stallion Speightstown showed a tremendous amount of heart. He was being forced in down towards the rail by a Pletcher-trained favorite named Air Touch. He bounced off that foe several times, and he was just dead game to win that race by a nose, and perhaps most importantly, it came at this 7 furlong distance.
Yeah, and, you know, he's by Winstar stallion Speightstown, a top 20 juvenile sire who just gets you a racehorse, and that's what we saw from Oskar Blues in his debut. He's just all racehorse. That pace on the inside, dueled, very game, very professional, only one in the field to go this 7 furlong trip. Tied Mojovation with an 86 buyer. I think there's a lot to like about him here.
I wonder if he gets lost in the shuffle from a wagering standpoint one more time. We have a positive formulator fact for his very good trainer, Kenny McPeak. Past 3 years with 2-year-old debut winners coming back in start number 2 on dirt. 50% winners, a $3.71 ROI. That's Oskar Blues with the important winning experience at this 7 furlong distance. Speaking of experience, the number 3 Firenze Fire has that experience. Winner of the Sanford on July the 22nd. Let's go back to that race right now. And I like the way Firenze Fire sat on the outside. He's taking over the lead right now in the stretch, and it takes him a little while to change leads, but once he does so, he holds safe over Free Drop Billy and Psychoanalyzed.
Yeah, beat a couple who you just mentioned who are coming back here. Got this all-important win over the track that's really kind of been key at this meet, having experience over this surface. He's from the first crop of Poseidon's Warrior, a son of Speightstown, who won the Grade 1 Vanderbilt sprinting here at Saratoga, was better as an older horse. I'm expecting these to get rolling with more experience, and certainly Firenze Fire has an experience edge. I think he's got the bottom on his female side to handle that 7 furlong distance too. His dam is out of a full sister to Broodmare of the Year Oatsy, who produced Shackleford, Alabama winner Lady Joanne, and several other good stakes performers.
Going out for trainer Jason Service, who's had a breakthrough season in 2017, winning with almost 30% of his starters. Of the horses coming out of the Sanford, you might want to consider the number 4 Psychoanalyzed. Now, Psychoanalyzed was a very speedy debut winner at Belmont on June the 14th, but he just couldn't make the lead in the Sanford. And I think Louis Saez was a little bit too conservative down towards the inside. And instead of making the front, he opted for the pocket and got a lot of dirt kicked back in his face. He finished evenly, but I think he will benefit from that experience, and I think we'll see a more aggressive ride from Manny Franco this time around.
Yeah, very much so. And, You know, that's an interesting point. These 2-year-olds at this stage of their career, getting that experience facing a little bit of adversity is so important. And let's see what Psychoanalyzed does mentally coming out of that race. He is from the first crop of Overanalyzed by Dixie Union. He's currently the runaway leading freshman sire by both winners, with 17 individual winners through Thursday, and earnings. And I really didn't expect that from them so early in the 2-year-old year. Overanalyzed was a graded winner late in his 2-year-old year who trained on to win the Arkansas Derby. So I expected these to get better with some distance and experience. So I'm really curious to see what this one does going the 7 furlong trip.
Our friends at Winstar might have something with Overanalyzed. You mentioned he's had such an impressive first crop thus far. Speaking of Winstar stallions, the number 5 National Flag is by Speightstown, as well as the 2 Oskar Blues. National Flag kind of bombed in his career debut at Belmont at 3-5 for Todd Pletcher. He was up on the pace, and he just couldn't step with those horses in the stretch. He came back, and the real National Flag, I think, showed up on August the 5th. 81 Beyer speed figure. This horse is still a little bit green, but when you look at this pedigree, there's a lot of potential here.
Yeah, very much so. We've already discussed Speightstown. National Flag is a half to Bernina Star, 3rd in the Torrey Pines out in California. The dam's a half to Pimlico Special winner Eddington, who was 3rd in the Preakness. Farther back, you see a French Group 1 winner and some European class. There's certainly the scope there to handle the 7 furlongs. $600,000 yearling National Flag, just tired in his debut, but you know what? I think sometimes these 2-year-olds kind of need that initial start and blow off a little bit of steam. He is still a bit green, but he was a lot more professional and tractable in his second start against what looked like a solid field of well-bred horses. There were several I was taking a hard look at that day. And, you know, I'd watch the tote here because this one might wind up being kind of, quote unquote, the other Pletcher in the wagering behind Mojovation. I think he'll handle the step up to 7 furlongs, and I really like this horse's prospects moving forward.
Wayne Lucas has a very promising 2-year-old in the number 6. That is Sporting Chance by Winstar stallion Tiz Now out of the stakes-winning mare Winning Ride. Sporting Chance has shown big speed in his short career thus far. Nice maiden win on July the 22nd. How do you think he's going to adapt to the pace situation in here? This is a nice outside post. If Louis Saez doesn't want to go for the lead, perhaps he could stalk 1 or 2 from that are breaking from the inside.
Well, that's the thing. You know, the horse is going beyond 5.5 furlongs for the first time. He'll need to settle. We're going to need to see some mental maturity from him. But his pedigree does indicate distance ability. Of course, by Tiz Now, his dam, a daughter of Candy Ride, a grade 1 place juvenile herself, was also 3rd in the Coaching Club American Oaks. He was 2nd on debut at Churchill, set the pace, and gave way late to Dak Attack, who came back to be a stakes winner at Ellis. Won next out on the lead at Saratoga, the 84 Beyer. He earned his next best in the field. There's a lot to like about him. We're just going to kind of see what happens when the gates open.
We talked about Sporting Chance and the runner-up on that July 22nd race, Give Me a Minute. In that day's Spa Baby event, Give Me a Minute, when we talked about him, we looked at his pedigree and we thought, you know, he's going to want a little bit more ground. I'm pretty sure Dallas Stewart would be happy if this horse runs late, gallops out well, and will come back in a longer maiden race. Well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. He's not coming back in a maiden race. He's coming back in the grade 1 hopeful. And if there's pace in here, this one should be running late. He's by one of the best Louisiana breds I've seen, Star Guitar.
Yeah, Star Guitar, such a hard-knocking son of Quiet American. This is his second crop, these current 2-year-olds. And watching that first crop, they've definitely done better as they've progressed into their 3-year-old years. They've improved with experience and with distance. Give Me a Minute has got some experience. He was a good closing second to Sporting Chance in that debut, and he's getting some added distance. I think he could pick up a piece of it, but I wouldn't use him beyond your exotics.
You could make the argument that the number 8 Free Drop Billy is the strongest closer in this race. If there is a fast pace, Free Drop Billy likely would be the one to directly benefit. A good second, as we saw earlier on in the grade 3 Sanford. He was in a little bit tight in the early portion of the race, down towards the inside. Once he got to the outside, he seemed a lot more comfortable. And I really like the progression from start 1 to start 2 for trainer Dale Romans.
Yeah, and I think he's another one who's going to relish this 7 furlong distance. He's got really a very turf-oriented pedigree, but also a very distance-oriented pedigree on both sides. He's by Union Rags among last year's leading freshman sires. His second crop hasn't been as strong, but that's kind of a typical progression for a young sire. His first crop has trained on decently to stretch out. His dam was grade 3 placed on the turf. He's a half to Hawkbill who won the Group 1 Coral Eclipse in England. The second dam won the grade 1 Ballerina. This is the family of champion Cozine, a grade 1 winner in Tismis Sioux. A lot of class here.
As you said in the open, Nicole, you could go with any horse in this race. You could make a strong case for any horse in this race. It's so wide open. It's probably a spread in any sort of multiple race bet. Where are you heading?
You know what? Firenze Fire obviously has the graded win here, but I think some of the other maiden winners at this meet might start catching up to him in terms of development. I really loved National Flag's maiden win. He's an impressive horse from a physical standpoint. I kind of can't get him out of my head, and I think he'll have the scope to stretch out to 7 furlongs. As I said, watch the tote. He might be a little bit overlooked for his stablemate Mojovation. I like the Oskar Blues already has the win at 7 furlongs. I love how game he was on that debut. I think that's an important intangible for these 2-year-olds at this time of year. And Mojovation and Sporting Chance, on paper, they figure, but I think they'll both need to settle a little to get this trip.
And I'm not sure if Mojovation will be allowed to settle down from the inside. He's going to have to go, lest he be shuffled back down towards the rail. I think Sporting Chance will be in with a Sporting Chance, turning into the stretch from this outside post position, showing some speed. I think the price will be right for Mr. Lucas. I would have to use him. I guess I would have to use Mojovation in any kind of multiple race wagers. I feel bad if Todd Pletcher knocked me out at a relatively short price. But like you, I really appreciated Oskar Blues' grit in his debut, buried down towards the inside, leaned on by that Pletcher-trained favorite, and he just refused to lose. So maybe I'll lean towards Oskar Blues in the Grade 1 hopeful, and our coverage presented by Winstar.